Painting techniques. The natural world can very often appear on close scrutiny to resemble a range of abstract shapes and colour combinations, where the colours and shapes entwine and intermingle in a complicated, intricate manner. Therefore, when painting in watercolour, it is important to utilise as many techniques as possible in order to produce the most convincing results. Cling film is regularly used by watercolour artists as a means of producing a range of textures which emulate organic substances and surfaces within the natural world. After tearing off a piece of cling film, paint the surface using thick paint which has hardly any added water. To the naked eye, it appears that the film is repelling the paint. Don't worry, as this is to be expected. Place the film paint side down and press and stroke firmly in one sweep. Carefully lift the cling film off the paper and you are left with a spiky looking paint surface. Alternatively, apply quite wet paint to a clean piece of film and this time tap the paint gently onto the paper. The result is quite different and can be interpreted as the shapes found in foliage, bushes, leaves, etc. If another colour is then added to this in the same way, depth is produced and the result is even more convincing. By painting on a tiny piece of balled up cling film and pressing this onto the surface of the paper, the appearance of flower heads can be created. Another useful technique is to paint thick paint onto the edge of a piece of thin card. Tapping the card firmly onto the surface of the paper produces thin, natural lines which are very difficult to produce using a brush alone. This technique produces an effect rather like stem grasses, twigs and branches. Another very well used technique is to initially paint a very watery area, which may be made by using water alone, or perhaps it might contain a tint of colour. While this is still very wet, drop a slightly stronger, thicker colour onto the watery surface. Do not allow the brush to touch the paper. You will see the paint explode into the water. Let this happen and leave it to dry. This method is known as wetting to wet, and you will find this referenced in many books about watercolour painting. Experiment with the paint thickness and the length of card you use. Try other thicknesses of card and combine the lines with other techniques to produce a wide range of experiments. Use your brush and find ways to drag and stroke the paint across the surface. Drop pure water onto the existing paint, be it wet or dry, and observe the resulting effects. Become familiar with the range of possibilities. Enjoy yourself. Keep the results, as some of these experiments may be utilized in your future paintings. Here are a few watercolour painting experiments produced by various students of mine. As you can see, some of them are interesting in their own right, and others show how with a little imagination, imagery can be created from seemingly random shapes and surface textures. In future lessons, we will be using some of these techniques where appropriate to make a finished painting. But as always, the more you practice, the more comfortable you will be with the methods and processes of the medium.